How's it going, guys? And welcome to the showdown between the High Elves, led by Prince on a Star Dragon, and the Beastmen, who are going to be led by Morker the Shadowgave. So let's jump right into this match, guys, and have some fun. So over here in Vanguard, you guys can see there's already a massive battle underway. In Vanguard, I do have three groups of the Illyrian Weaver Archers, and I really like them quite a bit in this matchup. So firstly, with their combat stats and martial prowess, you can see they have 32 melee attack, 34 melee defense, and 27 weapon strength. So if the Beastmen player's trying to catch them with like Poison Hounds or even regular Chaos Hounds, these guys should be able to countercharge them with their charge bonus of 24 and take them out relatively quickly. Also, with 140 range, they can outrange the Centaurs with throwing axes, who only have 70 range. Unfortunately, he vanguarded right in front of me here, so I'm probably going to take a pretty massive volley here to the face. But nonetheless, I should be able to pull them back and get some pretty good counterplay on these Centaurs. On top of that, they do have decent combat stats, so if they have to fight against regular Centaurs, which you do see in this matchup, sometimes great weapons as well, you can see these Centaurs over here, which are the standard variant, are 29, 26, and 32. So really their stats aren't that much different at 32, 34, and 27. So I definitely like these guys as kind of a Vanguard skirmish counter cav pick. Aside from that, in the front line, I do have a couple Spearmen, two groups of the Swordmasters of Hoeth in the back, so I was just kind of experimenting. Phoenix Guard arguably are very good in this matchup as well, because they have that physical resist, they're a little bit more durable, but I was kind of expecting like a very heavy Best-Score herd that was just going to bull rush me, and I wanted to see that if the Swordmasters of Hoeth with their anti-infantry and armor piercing would be able to munch them pretty quick. But unfortunately, he brought a bit of a chaff army in terms of his infantry. It's just, Ungor Spearman herds. It looks like he does have one Bestigor. So I don't know how well the Swordmasters of Hoeth are going to do, but we'll find out. On top of that, I do have a Loremaster of Hoeth down here, so I like him quite a bit. Very good for holding like a tight elite infantry core. He does have Spirit Leech and Earthblood, two of the more competitive abilities in the game, so definitely going to bring some pretty good utility here. So that's pretty much it for my main force, one group of Spearmen on the outside here. And I'm also trying out the Frostheart Phoenix. So I figured with 100 movement speed and, wow, 98 leadership. I never noticed that before. But he has a really good debuff, so let's look. The Blizzard Aura, it lowers melee attack by 9. So if there's like a big blob battle, and oftentimes high elf armies are a little bit thin in terms of their infantry, so the battles can become very like tight and compact. I wanted to see if the Phoenix with his melee attack debuff could kind of blob up, really help my forces survive. In worst case scenario, I can go and snipe the enemy caster. So you could chase down the Bray Shaman, just hunt him. The Bray Shaman on a chariot has 79 speed compared to the 100 of my Phoenix. So really hoping that'll do well. Lastly, I do have a Prince on a Star Dragon. Beastmen are one of those armies that are very susceptible to terror routing and whatnot. So I figured the Prince would be pretty good, and I thought I had ample protection here with the Illyrian Reavers, but again, we'll find out. He has a ton of Centaurs with throwing axes. He has 4 of those, and then also a couple regular Centaurs on the outside here, so a ton of pressure on my Prince here, but we'll see how he does. So without further ado, guys, let's get the show on the road. So you can see here, these Centaurs with throwing axes just massacre my Illyrian Reavers instantly, just taking down tons of models. And it looks like he got the first fire, the first shot off there. So the Centaurs with throwing axes, releasing those axes very quickly. So I immediately do a bit of a tactical retreat, and as soon as I'm out of range and he can't, counter fire here, I'm able to shoot in and get some pretty good work done and just melting those Centaurs with throwing axes. So in the meantime, he's going to be advancing his main army. You can see the Centaurs, a little bit of a tongue twister there, are going to be advancing, trying to get some fire on my Illyrian Weaver archers. So I do pull back into the forest. I have a little bit of terrain here to work with, and I also advance my Spearmen. So the Spearmen, silver shields, a very, very good kind of a magnet for firepower. So I'm just going to be sending them forward and trying to screen out these Centaurs. But a relatively even trade. My one group here of Illyrian Reavers did really get wrecked by that initial volley, but now I'm just kind of wasting his ammunition a little bit, making those Centaurs shooting into my Spearmen and using my superior range in the back of 140 to just, have a good time. He's also going to be moving his main force, so you can see the Bestigor herds and some of these Ungor Spearman herds are going to be advancing. In the back, it looks like he does have a couple Ungors I missed there in the initial covering. He's also going to be moving his Centaurs around the back, who he was probably expecting some archers, like maybe regular archers or even Lothran Sea Guard. If you get really effective cycle charging and catch them when they're not braced, Centaurs can do some pretty good work against their low armor. So just using the Spearmen to screen and hiding in the forest for now, and he's just kind of chipping away at this frontal formation of Spearmen, but it's going pretty well. I am getting ready for this charge over here, so I had a pretty good natural terrain lip. You can see I have this hill, so if he comes in here, it's going to be pretty easy to corral him. So I'm going to be grabbing these Swordmasters of Hoeth, having them go after the Bestigor herds, and I think my other Swordmaster of Hoeth right here is going to be advancing on this infantry line that's going to be going here. So he's just kind of chipping down my front line. I mean, really, he did a lot of damage initially, so he can probably afford to do this. My Spearmen are going to crumble very, very quickly. I was trying to get a Star Dragon Breath because he was standing still, but, unfortunately at the last second he did move. So I get my angry pigeon thing in here, and you can see he's going to be feasting, but my opponent immediately reacts with the Centaurs, getting a pretty good surround, but I'm fine with that, because their melee attack's 20 now against, 48 melee defense, so he should be able to hold for quite some time. So the Swordmasters of Hoeth are in here, kind of with the Spearmen, and that's a pretty cool picture there, just seeing the Spearmen with the, the heavy swords just crushing these Centaurs, or Bestigors over here, which is very cool. Illyrian Reaver still just kind of providing some counterplay to the Centaurs, and you can see my dragon is going to be landing in the Spearmen. I was just trying to get a terror route. And these guys have really bad armor piercing values anyway, so the 80 armor of the Prince and the really high melee defense with stand your ground should be good. Unfortunately, he does get a Chaos Spawn summon, so the Chaos Spawn are in the back of my spears, and you know, they're going to be losing their martial mastery or martial prowess relatively soon. So I'm going to be shooting them a little bit with these guys, but he is coming around my flank very aggressively. So the Centaurs are engaging. He does find a bit of a gap right here to push through, so these Centaurs are just going after my Illyrian Reaver archers. So at this point, I was like, okay, I'm going to retreat. I'm going to fall back into this area. I'm going to grab my Prince on the Star Dragon, isolate the fight over here, and I can probably terror out all of these Centaurs, because honestly, the Illyrian Reavers, I don't know how they would trade one-on-one, but I feel like they do very well against Centaurs. Like, it's because they can kite and shoot at the same time, pick off models, and when they do have to fight in melee, I feel like it's pretty good. So I'm just going to leave my Angry Pigeon right here to kind of, you know, pigeonhole these guys, and I'm going to be charging it with the Spearman, just getting a bit of an anti-large bonus on these light targets. So this Pigeon doing a really good job kind of blocking things up over here, also brings some good AP against the Vestigor herds. So he's still just kind of chipping in here, having a little bit of a problem getting these guys to be combat effective, so nonetheless, so he gets into my back line, he gets 2 Chaos Spawn summons, so my front line just completely buckled. He did get that Throwing Axe fire and just figured he could wear them down, and he also summons a Cygor. So he has 2 groups of Chaos Spawn and a Cygor summon right now. You can see my Swordmasters of Hoth on the far side are just going to be fighting a desperate fight versus these Chaos Spawn, but having done pretty well. I mean, they took care of a lot of Beastmen infantry and were able to fend off some of these Centaurs here, so not bad at all. But this is really an important aspect of the fight, getting the Star Dragon to fend these guys off, and look how well the Illyrian Reavers are doing. They're just laying a whooping on these Centaurs right here, and they're terrified, obviously having leadership issues, being a relatively low leadership unit. So it's going well, and I mean, the Illyrian Reavers, you can see they're taking a little damage, but they're really giving it to these Centaurs, so I think they're one of the best units on the High Elf roster for sure. So we clean up these guys, and this was, I wanted to form like a new pocket here, just a bit of a Helm's Deep situation, so just clear out all these fast units, isolate them over here, and then the Star Dragon getting a fat, juicy breath attack right into the middle of that herd, who's surrounding my Lore Master of Hoth here, so he should be able to stand and fight with 90 armor. But the throwing axes are coming in, so my entire front line is collapsed and buckled at this point. I do also have my Frostheart Phoenix, who was able to do pretty well, but realizing it's a bit of a lost cause and his throwing axes were collapsing pretty quickly on the Phoenix, I decided to pull back and just kind of unify my forces. So right now, Swordmaster of Hoth are coming back in. You can see the bounce power pretty heavily in my opponent's favor, but that's largely an inflated value because he has all these Chaos Spawn and he also has a summoned Cygor. So he uses those to chase off my flank over here, which is definitely a little bit tough, but this is what I wanted. I wanted to have a good firing line, just be shooting in, and then get my Star Dragon to just terror out these low-tier troops. So the Star Dragon's fighting. You can see his mass is being, his bulk is being blocked up by some of those guys, but he gets a nice little tail whip right there. And the Swordmasters of Hoth coming into the fourth quarter, even without martial mastery, they're going to be pretty strong. So they charge in and are just going to be cleaving the skulls of some of these Beastmen troops. So man, they have some cool animations for sure. So he gets that upper head cut, decapitates that guy. Always a good time, but Morker, more so, the biggest issue for my opponent is Morker is isolated now, and this often happens. A lot of Beastmen players will send in Morker with, like, you know, even against Vestigors, you really need to protect him, especially against, like, a Star Dragon and a Frostheart Phoenix here. But he's doing a pretty good job with the throwing axes, just chipping away at my large units. You can see my Prince is starting to take some work. But the Lore Master of Hoth does get a big Earthblood right there, which is going to be healing my Prince, my Phoenix, the Chaos Spawn coming in, so a very, very pitched fight right here. But Morker is taking a lot of damage, and all these Beastmen troops on that same note are getting their melee attack heavily lowered by the Frostheart Phoenix. So these ones are at 11 right now, and pretty much, you know, even the Chaos Spawn are probably pretty low at, 25. So my archers in the back, I'm just trying to shoot in there and do as much damage as I can, also continuing to shoot at these Centaurs with throwing axes, as they're pretty much the last thing my opponent has that can really do heavy-duty damage against my lords and things like that. So just a very, very even fight. So now that a lot of his units that were inflating the bounce of power are gone, you can see it's starting to come into my favor. A massive terror route's going to be going down, and it looks like Morker was indeed killed. I'm pretty sure he got taken out by the Lore Master of Hoth as well as the Prince and the Frostheart Phoenix. So he's going to be chasing back here. He gets a good flank with some of these troops coming back, so I just countercharge, you know, trying to get a bit of a charge bonus, but he also gets a charge that's going to sandwich my forces here. So very well played my opponent, who's kind of pinning me down. But the Illyrian Reaver is fighting hard into the fourth quarter, just doing a really good job. I shattered those Centaurs right there, and I'm just going to be grabbing my Prince because this is a very powerful mobile force that I could potentially be cycle charging these Ungors and different things like that, so I wanted to minimize the casualties I was taking here. So the bounce power is in my favor. I do have the Frostheart Phoenix and Lore Master of Hoth, as well as the Swordmasters, just kind of pushing forward and chopping up the remnants of the Beastmen forces. The Bray Shaman, I think he has enough Winds of Magic for another Cygor summon. You can see, you know, he's only done it once this game, so he's probably just been saving up his Winds of Magic, so that could potentially get him back into this game right now. But I'm going to be able to really heavily secure this flank, and you can see the Asser here doing a pretty good job. Going to be pushing into these Ungor Spearman herds, and the Angry Doom Pigeon, as we shall coin him, doing some solid work for me. I mean, it's really nice, that synergy, just using him as a bit of a defensive armor-piercing unit that's lowering the melee attack, like helping you win this fight. Like, these Centaurs are going to lose out on so much of their effectiveness, having their melee attack taken down to 18. So the Prince does charge in right here. He's able to get a nice little kind of goon on those Ungors who are broken right now. So a lot of his troops are buckling, but he does get another Cygor summon. So you can see the bounce of power is coming back towards the middle a little bit. And the Cygor, especially since I'm pretty blobbed up right here, could potentially do some pretty good damage. But one of the best counters to Cygor that the High Elves have is Star Dragon Breath. So a single Star Dragon Breath, if you guys, and look at that blast right there. Man, he just took those Illyrian Reavers out. That was really, really rough. So what I'm going to do is grab the Frostart Phoenix, have him chase down the Spray Shaman with the Lore of Wild using my speed and my armor piercing, something I should have done much earlier. Definitely very sloppy, and I think I was trying to go and he got like caught on that guy, but check this out. So the Star Dragon Breath is very good. Cygors did get nerfed, but they're still pretty decent against High Elves. So I'm going to be using the Breath Attack. I did use it, but for some reason it didn't cast. I'm sure you guys have had that problem. It's very, very annoying. So here comes the Breath Attack again, round 2. And just check this out. So 6,200 HP down to like, yeah, that's a lot of damage right there. So if you have like 2 Star Dragons, those builds can be pretty viable against Cygor play, because 2 Star Dragon Breaths can really just push them off the battlefield. So my Prince should be able to finish those guys off. The Illyrian Reaver Archer is coming in, and the Lore Master of Hoth is still a very heavy force to remove. 55 melee defense, a couple thousand HP. Definitely not a pushover. So this is pretty much the death throes of the Beastmen. The final fight, you can see the Lore Master of Hoth kind of doing his thing over here. My Frostart Phoenix should be able to tear her out, if not, push off the Spray Shaman. And also the Cygor will be going down here to my Prince. So very well played to my opponent. Definitely got a ton of value out of those Illyrian Reaver Archers. Very good counterplay to the Centaurs, I think. They have superior range, and in terms of their melee capabilities, they can do very well, and they would probably do even better against the Great Weapon variant, which is more prevalent, but he was probably expecting some, archers in the back, or Centaurs, not Centaurs, archers in the back, or maybe thinking that they could chase down my Illyrian Reaver Archers, which they did. But thankfully, I was able to kind of corner them in that area and get the air support from my Prince, who got 212 kills, so just a massive beast. So, I mean, the infantry fight's pretty hard to win there, especially with, like, Morker summoning Chaos Spawn and things like that. I mean, yeah, and like White Lions, like as much as I like their stats on paper, I feel like they're always so ineffective. Like if you guys have had any success with White Lions, I'd love to hear about like what matchups you just like used them and felt like super like hyped. Like, yeah, that worked really well. I'm gonna bring White Lions next time. Like it's just, I don't know, I never have that experience. Like they always just get crumbled, and like Bestigors on their charge just do so much damage to White Lions. They lose their martial mastery, and then they have like 20 melee defense or something. They just get crumped on, which is just, I don't know. I don't like it. But anyways, yeah, a lot of high elf builds I think that work are just using the spearmen with their high melee defense, and then using like dragons and other things like that and cav charges. I didn't want to bring like dragon princes because they're pretty slow, and I feel like they would just get kited out by these throwing axes here, which is a little bit tough. But yeah, as far as my opponent's build, a couple things. I would probably honestly just go with a Bestigor herd, like a couple Bestigors in the front line. Like you can mix in some chaff, but I don't know if the Ungor spearmen herds are necessary. I mean, they were decent fodder and chaff, and they honestly held my spearmen up. Probably would get great weapons just to be safe, because had I gone Dragon Princes, like these guys would have just been like bouncing off them, like, like doing no damage. I love the Throwing Axe pick, and I also think the Cygor summoning is very strong. Like it was hard to deal with 2 Cygors, as you guys saw. The bounce power was very scary at several points in the battle, but just changing to great weapons, getting a couple Poison Hounds to really pressure the Illyrian Reavers. Like Poison Hounds plus Centaurs do really well against these guys, but that's just my 2 cents. So very well played to my opponent, SJXX. Look forward to running into you again on ladder, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this High Elf versus Beastmen showdown. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.